Good evening and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting for July 18th, 2023. That means we're already halfway through summer. I'll call this meeting to order, and the clerk will note that all council are present. Yeah, Dan, I'm a bit frustrated that we're already halfway through summer.
Do you have any other bad news you'd like to share?
I'm getting older. We'll move right to the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand? And Dan English, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Any announcements? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to remind people who are concerned about the regional traffic or transportation management center, there's going to be a forum here in the community room in the library on August 3rd at 5:30 in the evening. If you're interested to show up, KMPO is putting on that forum.
Thank you. Woody?
That's interesting. I have a thought. Thank the painting crew for being out all night painting our lines on the streets. We're starting to see it pop up in the north. I think it's wonderful you guys are doing it, let alone it makes things cleaner. There doesn't seem as many people driving through the lines till the drunks come out, maybe later. Appreciate that.
Anything else? Very well, thank you. Consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 23055.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
We'll move on then to public comment, and we have one person, Nick Goodwin. Nick, come on up.
No, Justin? Hope he's okay.
You're boring meeting.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you ready?
Yep.
Mayor and Council, it's my pleasure to be here tonight. Most of you, all of you know me, mostly as my work for the Urban Forester for the City of Coeur d'Alene Parks Department. But I'm here tonight in another role. Some of you, all of you know me from that role as well, which is the president of the Lake Cities Employees Association. We're local number 433. I'm the president of the association. I have Jason Hendricks by my side. He's my vice president. We asked our members, as many that could attend, to come down here tonight just as a showing of solidarity to each other and as a show of support to you, the council. We thank you for the work you do as city council members and our mayor, giving up your personal time for public service. I appreciate that, and we appreciate that as well. We're here tonight, as I said, in solidarity to show our support for you and to remind you that, as you know, we are in the middle of negotiations with the administration here at the City of Coeur d'Alene. We have made some headway in those negotiations. We are getting close to maybe the finish line, depending on how votes go, but we're going to need your support to get across that finish line and to get a contract ultimately passed the city budget. So we're here tonight to remind you we're here to ask for your support as we come to finish this, and most importantly, to thank you for your service as our council members and our mayor. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you for thanking us. Move on to Resolution 23056, approving a contract with NNAC.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having me before you tonight. Oops, wrong program. So this project was brought to us by KMPO. Glenn Miles contacted me one day and said, hey, can you spend $200,000 fixing gaps in sidewalks near transit routes? And I said, I think we can spend $200,000. The key to that was that it had to be designed in-house. So I picked out a bunch of streets where there were gaps in the sidewalk network next to transit routes. Went through those and whittled out the ones that were going to be too difficult. Brought that to Troy, and we worked together to whittle that down even more. We came up with a few that seemed like good candidates. I went ahead and designed those, and when I did my first cost estimate on it, because of the intricacies of the design, it was about $350,000 for the $200,000 that we had. So I asked Glenn, should I just cut a couple streets out of it or just go ahead and bid it? And he said, bid it and we'll see if we can find you the money. So we put it out to bid. NNAC was the low bid on that at $318,385. And from there, I contacted ITD after Glenn had already talked to them, and they said, well, we have an extra $125,000 for you. So that brought our total up to $329,999. So we can award the contract. So that's what I'm before you tonight for, is to get your approval to award this contract to NNAC. And so I brought the plan set up here so I can show you the project, the segments of sidewalk that are involved in this project. So the first one, because there's a 20% match, and that is in-house, in-kind contributions, the Parks Department and the Streets Department were already planning on paving this path from Riverstone Drive down to the Centennial Trail behind the Transit Center. That was rough graded years ago by the county and ready for paving, and so we've been planning on doing that, and that works as our match contribution towards this project. So we're planning on doing that this summer. Then the sidewalk projects that NNAC would be constructing would be to put a bus stop concrete pad here on Celtice Way at the Park and Ride that next to the Centennial Trail, right by Northwest Boulevard where that Park and Ride is. That transit stop had been closed because it was not accessible, so we're going to put ADA ramps in there and a crosswalk and make that an accessible bus stop. And then here on Haycraft, this is between US 95 and Government Way. There's a small section here that we'd be filling in. And then on Hanley Avenue by Pine Grove, this is east of Ramsey Road. Very small section here that we can fill in and put in rectangular rapid flashing beacons to cross the street to get to the other side so that people on the other side of the street can use that sidewalk as well. This one is Hattie Avenue. This is between Government Way and 3rd. There's a small section here to fill in. And these are all within city right-of-way, so that was another factor when looking at these because we didn't have any money to buy right-of-way. And then Marie Avenue, this is the Winco area is down here. This is an apartment complex. This is between Ramsey and Julia, so there's a small section there as well. And that wraps up all the little segments that we'd be doing. So I'm asking you to approve this contract with NNAC so we can get these sidewalk segments, these gaps filled in this summer. Now I would stand for any questions.
Questions? Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, first of all, the presentation's really good. You know, we spend a lot of time downtown, as we should, because there's a tremendous, a lot of usage in the downtown area. Council learned firsthand what it's like for people with disabilities to try to get around on those sidewalks. Mm-hmm. And I was exhausted after that. And so my heart really goes out to those people that are struggling to get around. But you've really found some areas throughout the town that desperately need attention, especially that transit center where you're going to pave that whole section. I see a lot of people, because I'm on the trail a lot, see a lot of people with disabilities trying to just navigate. So I guess not really a question. Kudos to you for choosing these locations, and long overdue, and I'm glad we can do it.
Thank you.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris? Thank you. I remember years ago we were talking about doing a sidewalk there between transit center in Riverstone that goes all the way up to Northwest Boulevard, there's really no sidewalk there.
Correct.
So this is not part of that project we were talking about.
No, it is not. That was going from Riverstone Drive all the way out to Northwest Boulevard. And that was a painful project where we had to give money back to the state, around $70,000 or something, because the bids came in way too high and we weren't able to construct that. But over time, pieces of it have been filling in now, especially at the corner. We've got a plan for Parkwood Business Properties on their corner piece there to put in some frontage. So the only thing that'll be missing now is the gap at the two existing hotels that are there.
Yeah.
People can go through their parking lots, but that's not the safest either.
I agree with you. It's painful to give money to the state.
Yes.
Then I see that, so I did some math on the bid, and I guess our chunk is $63,000 plus change that we're supposed to do in kind, you said?
Yes, they calculated it as about 82,000. I think it's because it's removed from the total. I had to do some math a couple different ways to figure that out. But yes, we can definitely justify that we'll be using that much money.
Okay, it's just, okay, 20% should be 20%, but, okay. The concern I have about that, and I've always mentioned this before, when we do the in-kind stuff, is we're pulling people off one project to do another project. So while we're paying people, they're not sitting around, and when we pull them off a project to do something like this, even though it's in-kind and everyone's all kumbaya and stuff, it's still detracting from the other projects that they should be working on in the city, and one of our priorities is doing the streets. So I just wanted to say that is a concern of mine. I understand that, but I just don't like to see it. You showed a bus stop for $20,000. You said you were going to do a bus stop, or that's how much it's going to cost for the pad?
No, I didn't say.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That was the 20% match, I think is where the 20 came from. But this is the bus stop. It's just a concrete 24 by 20 concrete pad with a pedestrian ramp.
So there was no price attached to that?
No.
Okay, the curious thing is, because I'm on KMPO, and when they talked about doing bus stops on Celtice, they were talking $40,000 per bus stop, because it has to be engineered and all this stuff, and I just think that's ridiculous. So the other question I had, Hattie Avenue, could you bring up the slide for Hattie Avenue, and continuing there?
Yes.
And what is the business that's right south of there? What is that where we're putting in the sidewalk? You know what that is?
These are residential duplexes here. This is Dave Smith parking lot off to the east here.
Okay. And why was this chosen again?
Because of the connection to transit on Government Way.
So people walk that way is what they're saying?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Dan?
Well, I would also say these are great projects. I can pretty much visualize all of them, and also the transit center. That will be a great connector there. It's too bad when, they're by Winco, between Winco and those apartments, when you're going to do something, it's too bad you couldn't do some kind of a terrace trail down. The people from the apartment, they just have to kind of roll down the hill, but I realize that's not ours. So, but in the winter, I hate to see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're done?
Yeah, great project.
Woody, do you have a rant as well?
No, I have a couple of questions. So, sorry. So you're using terms filling in the gap and stuff like that. Isn't that part of what development does? They build the sidewalks, it's the right of way, they maintain it?
So if these residential properties, for instance, were to pull a building permit for, to remodel their houses or whatever, then they'd be required to put in the sidewalk because there's sidewalk within 450 feet of their home. But it's playing a waiting game, like when are these going to be remodeled? So that's why we're taking advantage of this money now.
So that's true with developments that, some of those big projects that have patches, you said, is that they're individual properties that haven't been around long enough to generate that?
Right, they haven't done anything to trigger a sidewalk requirement since the code was written that would require that.
Okay. That's weird, but okay, you found money, okay.
Well, and that's like those, the two hotels on Celtice Way.
Right.
You know, the assisted living development to the west of there all has shared use path in, but those hotels were put in before that was a requirement.
The one other thing was the traffic impact on Saltese at that parking lot. It's a parking lot for buses, right? The one that's, you're putting the patch, I think.
This one
Dan
here?
was- No, the one that Dan was talking
Oh,
about.
there.
Yeah. So it seems odd to me that you would put a bus stop in the middle of a two-lane road, high-traffic place. Is that just the way it was always planned?
That's the way it has been, and there are two schools of thought for transit stops. And one is to have pullouts, which are costly, which is probably what they're trying to do on Celtice Way in Post Falls Highway District. And we did a couple of those along Celtice Way. Those are costly, but the pros and cons of it are if you stop in the street, you have traffic back up behind you and they have to get around you. But when you get your bus loaded, you can just take off. What happens in the pullouts, if the traffic is heavy enough, the bus can't find a gap to pull back out into traffic. And
You have to measure that, right?
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
engineers do. Interesting. All right, thank you.
Woody, you ought to drive north on Ramsey behind a bus.
I do
Yeah,
that,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion? Motion?
Oh,
Sure,
Oh, well,
go ahead.
What's that?
given that, and given my comment, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2356, approving a contract with NMAC Inc. for public transit sidewalk accessibility projects. So,
Second.
Do I have a motion and a second? Yes, you want to say something else?
Just want to say something else. Yeah, because, again, I have concerns about the in-kind stuff. And that we do that a lot, and we say, we're going to do it in-house, it'll be cheap, but we're pulling people off other projects. I want to thank the Streets Department for finally doing the intersection of Foster and Fourth. That's been a long time in coming, but the reason it didn't get done years ago was because, again, people got pulled off the project. I think it got unfunded. But I just want to be really cautious about doing this in-kind stuff. It means we're just pulling one resource from somewhere that's needed to this. And this is needed too, but our priority should be streets.
Chris?
Yeah, I just to add to that, the path segment that we are constructing as the in-kind, we've been planning this since they built the transit center there. So we've always had this project waiting to finish that. That was actually, I guess that piece of it actually was in that sidewalk project. So the design was already there. The money that we gave back to the state, that piece was to be in that project, but we never funded it. So we've always been planning on doing that piece. That's why we got the county to rough grade it and everything. And so we've been planning on doing it. And when this project came up, I asked, well, would that work as a match? Because we planned on doing it anyway. And since it was, it made it seem like a simpler ask.
Did you ask the county for any money?
No, I got them to rough grade the path for us during their construction.
Oh. You should hit them up. I hear they have tons of money. Thank you.
You can sit down. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Gookin,
Yeah.
English,
yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers.
Before we move on to the
Yes.
next project, Nick, can you come back up here? Normally, when it's public comment, the council and I don't respond. But I think it's important, as I was thinking about this, that we respond to the point of saying, you people are important to us. We appreciate the work that you do. We'd be lost without you. And we agree. We hope that we can get things worked out quickly. and to your satisfaction as well as ours, so that when negotiations are done, you feel as valued as we know you are. So I wanted to share that with you, and I'm sure the council all agrees.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay, next, we have a resolution with the Downtown Association. Good evening, Renata.
Good evening. I'm here to present another special event agreement with the Downtown Association. This one is for the street fair event to be held August 4th, 5th, and 6th. This is an annual event that occurs at the same time as a couple other big events in town. So we have Art on the Green, and we have the Taste of the Coeur d'Alenes. So the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene happens in the city park, and it's sponsored by the Kiwanis Club, and so all of that is handled by permits through the Parks Department. The NIC event for Art on the Green is all handled through NIC, and the city does not regulate that event. So this is the one agreement for the one event that we do regulate in the city streets. So this again is one of the agreements that we were able to hammer out the recommendations for who's doing what, the days of those events, what the requirements are. We were able to add in some traffic control volunteers at Third and Sherman during the peak hour events. Public safety felt like, we needed a little extra assistance there during some of the peak hours because so many pedestrians crossing while we still have the north-south traffic lane open. And I think they forget that cars actually are still coming through because they're so used to walking all down Sherman, they forget to stop there. So we were able to add in some of that. In my staff report, please note that the permit fee was incorrect. The one that is in the agreement is correct. So it should be $1,800 instead of the $2,250. We still require the $1,000 deposit. Since there are 3 events that day, we could only put together, or for those 3 days, the city expenses for overall 3 days. We don't divide them out of how much time was spent over toward the NIC area versus the park area versus the downtown area. But the Downtown Association provided me some of their numbers for their costs for those 3 days, totaled about $20,800. For the city of Coeur d'Alene for just overtime and comp time and benefits was $27,339.17. So I am here to ask your approval of the agreement with the Downtown Association. And Chloe is here representing the Downtown Association if you have specific questions for them. Emily was unable to make it this evening, so I stand for questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Renata, with the overtime from last year,
Yes.
more specifically the police overtime, do we see or anticipate that decreasing with the additional traffic guards and the training provided to help with that by citizens?
No, I think that the training that we're doing with the volunteers is to cover some of their expenses with Traffic Corp and private companies
got
that
it.
come in, yeah.
Versus, thank you.
Okay, Woody?
Quick question. So what you just gave us numbers of overtime and their costs. Those differences isn't what we're getting paid though, right?
No, we're still basing the permit fee based on our fee structure that we do for special events.
So these numbers really have no,
It's just for your information. I was asked to provide it to council so you could kind of see the expenses of the days that we're having special events.
thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Renata, so we've asked to look at the fees and increase it so the cost is borne more by the event, the person who puts on the event as opposed to the taxpayer. What was it, so it's going to be $1,800 you said this year. What was it in years past?
In years past, I think it's kind of been a little unique in that I think most of the cost was borne that first day. So I think we did the $750 fee for the first day and $300 for the next 2 days. So this year I increased it to be the $750 for 2 days and the $300 for the last day because they don't take the street for the full day.
And I asked this question of the Downtown Association before. So had they done any studies to show what the merchants gross from it? So we are getting some return.
Let me check with Chloe.
Okay, check with Chloe.
Chloe, you want to come up and talk about that?
Good evening, Council. We haven't put the study together as of yet, but I spoke with some of the downtown business owners, and they actually do get a free booth to come outside of their store so that they are not paying the full price that they would if it was the general vendor. A lot of them then select to do an additional 2 or 3 booths next to it, and that is at a reduced rate. They also say that it's one of the best weekends, and they do a lot of like summer blowout sales just to clear inventory, and it is very beneficial on their behalfs.
And how much do you spend? You said there was a cost, and I forget what the number was.
I believe it's 20,800.
20,000.
Yeah.
You make that back somehow, right?
So we charge the vendor booths, and then we do some sponsorship as well to cover. But we, the vendor, the downtown businesses, they don't pay for that first booth, so we do kind of slightly increase it on the vendor booth for the general vendors.
Okay, and you are working on the report to let us know what the benefit is.
Yeah, we've
'cause
been
that's-
working with Ironman and the trail to kind of collect and put all of that data together.
Wonderful. Yes, because it's just, the concern for me is that taxpayers are paying for a lot of this. The burden's on the taxpayer as opposed to, now you are a nonprofit, so it's different from Ironman, and we got our money out of them. So, but I still would like to see the benefits. I know the downtown people, you do it to promote the businesses, and that's really
Yeah.
good. So
There's a lot of
hopefully there's a benefit from here somewhere.
Yeah, to promote the businesses, and then all of the profit that we wouldn't make goes back into the downtown and does all the flower baskets and the Christmas lights. And
Pretty, thank you.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chloe, just real quick, thank you.
Sorry.
Just a thought. I talked to just one restaurant owner, so this by no way is a study. But one of the owners was concerned because there's so much competing food that's offered down there, that this event doesn't assist them very much. Wondering if there's any conversation or forethought about maybe just an event for established restaurants in the future, aside from this weekend.
Yeah, we can definitely bring it to the events committee and mention it. I know we do separate the food vendors from the general vendor population, so it is just that section between Northwest Boulevard and First Street, as well as for power reasons. It does seem to kind of bring it a little closer to the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene's, which might also be bringing that foot traffic for the food vendors down that way anyway. But we try not to put competing businesses in front of our actual downtown established restaurants.
Very thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Sure.
Well, then, let's do one.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 23. Oh, no, I can't. Let me see yours. Sure. Mine's not working. Where am I at? Right here?
Oh, this one?
Yeah. 23057, approving an agreement with the Downtown Association for the street fair event to be held August 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Will the clerk take the roll, please?
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yes.
I'm not sure what's happening up here tonight, but
My computer's showing half of the agenda.
sluggish here.
It's the summer.
I think
Second
I'm just
half.
going to read off yours.
Okay, the next issue before us is regarding the modification to municipal code for the Historic Preservation Commission. Hillary.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Yes, I'm before you this evening requesting amendments to the Historic Preservation Code regarding membership. So in 2019, the City Council adopted our Historic Preservation Code and formed our Historic Preservation Commission. And at that time, we had 3 members of the commission that were appointed that also served on the county's Historic Preservation Commission. Since that time, it's been a little more difficult to retain that many members that would be willing to serve on both the county and the city's commission. And so that's been one struggle that we've had. Also, our Historic Preservation Commission had asked that we have a representative from the Coeur d'Alene tribe serve on the commission. And so we had gone through the process of having a commission member appointed that represented the tribe and then realized that that appointment was invalid because the individual didn't live in the county. They lived outside of the county, and so kind of went through the discussions with our city administrator and city attorney and the commission on what would be some other changes maybe we should make if we're going to bring forward some changes. Maybe we also want to allow if somebody worked for University of Idaho or the Museum of North Idaho and they had some interest in historic preservation and didn't live in the county but served in this area, that it would be really beneficial to allow that person to serve on our commission. So the changes before you this evening are basically to allow us just to have a little bit more flexibility in who can serve on the commission so that we can have individuals that have a great interest in preserving our history in Coeur d'Alene. There's also one thing you'll note in there, the ability to potentially appoint a member that lived outside of the county that maybe didn't work for any of those institutions. One of our commission members, she's lived in other states and served on other commissions, and they've at times had a hard time filling their commission. And so if you have a provision that says, okay, if someone is qualified, meets all these other criteria, has an interest in Coeur d'Alene's history, but doesn't live in our community, that might be beneficial. So you'll see those noted in the attached ordinance. So as I noted, it really just, largely everyone would need to live in the county unless they work for one of these institutions. It would allow someone, if they didn't live in the county, if they had the qualifications, and then reducing the members that had to serve on the county commission just to one instead of two. The Historic Preservation Commission heard this item in June and recommended unanimously approval to City Council. There's no financial implications. Performance analysis is it really just allows us more options for viable commission members, and it wouldn't change the nature of the commission regarding we have the requirements to be a certified local government. So when we established this and worked with the State Historic Preservation Office, we'd still have to maintain those criteria for our commission members. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
Questions? Dan?
Well, I would just have a comment. I think that all makes sense. I guess, and I'll be curious hear the rest of them, but I would have reservation about appointing somebody from out of state. I guess my first instinct would be, I think those other ones to be, somewhere, if they're not in the county and all of that makes sense, but to be an Idaho resident, I guess I would say let's adopt that. And then if we really still have trouble and we have this waiting list of people from Spokane or something that somehow want to get on here, but I'll hear the rest of the comments, but that's my only reservation. Otherwise, I think it's great, so.
Dan, did you have a comment?
Yes, and a question. Hillary, I can understand that you could have a member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe who doesn't live in Kootenai County, because doesn't the tribe,
Right.
it goes down into
Later.
the next, the other counties, so they can live anywhere. So why did you choose this language instead of just saying a member of the tribe? Because if you just said a member of the tribe, wouldn't that cover it no matter where they live?
Well, because it's not necessarily a member of the tribe, so it could be a staff member that works for them that's not a tribal member, so.
So you'd say
individual that's
representative of the tribe
employed.
then?
Right, so I think we did have, let's look at that language, I think we do have a representative of the tribe, let's see. Members representing an organization that has a vested interest in Coeur d'Alene's historic preservation, such as the Museum of North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene Tribe, and local higher education institutions, may reside outside of Kootenai County.
Yeah, and so I'm okay with that. Like Dan said, additionally, if no qualified persons residing within Kootenai County are willing to
Right.
serve, the mayor may appoint members who reside outside of Kootenai County. I find it hard to fathom that with 180,000 people in the county, you would not be able to find someone to serve. And in my experience, this is kind of like, is there someone you want who doesn't live in Kootenai County, who's like trying to get on the commission right now?
No, there's no underlying thing in our
No, there's not.
council liaison. Councilmember Miller can speak to
And
that as well.
I think there was a lot of discussion about, would this be somebody from out of state or
Kiki,
Washington,
would you
D.C.
like to talk?
or blah, blah. Well, she was talking to me, I'm sorry.
What would be the effect if we did pull that sentence out of the ordinance, section 1B? We took the last sentence out. Additionally, if no qualified persons residing within Kootenai County are willing to serve, we could force them to serve, I guess. The mayor may appoint members who reside outside of Kootenai County. Would that grossly affect the purpose here? Anyone?
Uh-oh.
No, it's just a provision to add flexibility. The ordinance requires 9 members on the board. If you're having difficulty filling all 9 spots, the idea was to give as much discretion as possible. And again, council has to approve any appointments. So if somebody comes out that the council doesn't want to approve because they're out of state or whatever, council can disapprove that person.
If I may clarify that a little bit too, so we don't have anyone in mind, but there could be an instance where we don't have somebody that meets the specific requirement because there's not a huge community of people that are a historian or like meet the very specific law, or kind of the criteria that the state has. So there are some historians that are in Spokane that do work in Idaho. They kind of work in a larger area. So I guess that would be the one instance where maybe that would happen.
Sounds like that's
It's-
already covered by the first paragraph, which says anyone who has a vested interest from an organization.
Provided they work for an organization. So
Right.
that's where that is. So, I mean, we could certainly go with it without that last sentence, and then if we have issues in the future, come back for
Yeah.
a further modification.
Yeah, that would just be a concern of mine. Generally, I mean, and to address what Randy said, in 12 years here, I've never seen us reject anyone appointed to any committee. So, yeah, it's possible. We never know. Thank you, Mr.
Other comments? Woody?
So we have 9 members,
We do.
and we have 9 members, or we don't
We
have?
have 8 currently, so we have 1 vacancy.
Okay, this made it sound like you're trying to find people and nobody wants to do it. Am I
The
misunderstanding that?
last round, when we were seeking people, we had very few people apply. And so at this point, we were trying to fill the last seat with someone that represented the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And then we had that glitch that happened with the residency issue. So we were hoping to fill that vacancy with someone representing the tribe.
Okay, and did I read something where this isn't going to tell people what to do with their property?
Correct,
Okay, that's still
correct. Yep.
the
No changes.
baseline. Okay,
Right.
thanks. Sorry, I twisted this up.
No problem.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, could I hear from our council liaison? You were going to fill us in.
Mr. Mayor? I get so used to that side of the table, just
Yeah, well,
getting
that's
your
fair.
ear. So
That's fair.
I kind of got into the rhythm. I think there was a lot of discussion about that, and there hasn't been a bunch of seats open. There weren't, the first go-around when we filled it, there were half a dozen people who were declined, or more than that, who had wanted to participate. So as the seats filled, I think it's a matter of getting the word out and soliciting the right people to make up a good commission that have some depth and experience and passion for this project. But I think the out-of-state thing was just basically to say, how can we be as flexible as possible? And nobody really used the language talking about an out-of-state issue. It was more of being able to solicit professions that would add to the strength of the commission. So I'm really comfortable with this change. I think a 9-member commission is pretty large anyway to get this done. So we kind of went out large, and it may be somewhere down the road, the objective may be to see how this works and consider a smaller commission. But I think adding a tribal member and these other professions is really important to the success of it.
Okay. You can amend this in your motion.
And I shall. But I
Thank
think
you.
I'm going to start by moving to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 23-1007 once by title only.
Second.
Motion second is heard. Will clerk take the roll, please?
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Would you please read the title?
Council Bill 23-1007, an ordinance amending the municipal code of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, by amending Municipal Code Section 2.85.030 entitled Historic Preservation Commission, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt Council Bill 23-1007 with striking the final sentence from number B, which is saying that if no qualified people are residing within Kootenai County, that the mayor may appoint members outside of Kootenai County.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to pass the ordinance, Bill number 23-1007, striking the last sentence of paragraph B. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move, enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74206A, considering labor contract offer or to formulate counteroffer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Thank you for coming.